Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Development Management Committee. I'll just go through the preliminaries first and then we'll get on with the business that we've got tonight. I'll take it slightly out of order. I intend to do Dallow Road first, and then I'll take the Gurdwara 1331 Dunstable Road, and then we'll deal with the scale of charges after that. Okay. I'll just read what I need to read. Members of the public are entitled to take photographs, film, audio, record and report on all public meetings in accordance with the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014. People may not, however, act in any way considered to be disruptive and may be asked to leave. Emergency evacuation procedure from the council chamber is turn left, follow the green emergency exit signs to the main town hall entrance and proceed to the assembly point at St George's Square. And we've got something which is mainly to do with offline. I'm not sure if we've got anybody offline. I'll deal with it when if necessary. Right, go on to the agenda proper. Apologies for absence tonight.
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Bridgen and Councillor Riaz.
Thank you. Like me, okay.
And my apologies for being late.
You were late. You were there when we started. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, 16th December. You okay with those? And I'll sign them sometime. Right? Yes, say something. Okay. Section 106, Local Government Finance Act.
On that word, yeah.
Any disclosures of interest tonight? I'll say it now or when the item's called.
Do we have to disclose that we're the ward councillors for this?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
References from committees and other bodies.
None, Chair.
So we'll go on the agenda proper now, and we'll start with agenda item 8, 226 Dallow Road. Nyla.
Good evening, Chair and members. This application relates to 226 Dallow Road. There's no written or verbal update on this application. The application site is 1.7 hectares and consists of a single and two-storey warehouse and associated external storage area and parking. It is currently occupied by Jewson's as a builder's merchant yard, a sui generic use. The site is located within a designated Category A employment site and is accessed from Dallow Road. The site is bounded by Hatters Way to the north, builders merchant uses and car dealership to the east and south, and lies directly opposite the Runley Road park. The current proposal is seeking approval for the reconfiguration of the existing builder's yard. Next. So this is the site. Next slide, please. Yeah. Reconfiguration of the existing builder's merchant yard comprising a new yard layout with changes to both parking and the external storage areas, including storage racking, high-level open-sided canopy, and minor works to the existing building elevations, a means of enclosure and associated works. The works are summarised as reconfiguration of staff and customer car parking, revised servicing arrangements, reconfiguration of the storage yard, including storage racking area up to 7 meters, erection of high-level open-sided canopy on the rear elevation, new entrance gates along Dallow Road frontage, new roller shutters to the north elevation, and infilling of windows in the south elevation. Should we just quickly go through the elevations? So these are just some of the elevations showing the existing and proposed changes, all very minor in nature in terms of the impact on the appearance of the building. The only major change is the rear canopy, if you show the side elevation. Yeah, so it's just a large canopy on the bottom picture. In terms of the principle of the development, as set out in paragraphs 15 to 18 of the committee report, the current proposal is not seeking to change the use of the site, nor is it seeking any additional floor space for the existing use. And as such, the scheme does not raise any major implications in relation to policy LLP 14, which deals with employment uses within designated employment sites. With regard to the impact on the character and the appearance of the area, the current proposal is seeking no changes to the scale of the built form on the site, only minor alterations to the appearance of the building as part of the refurbishment of the site. These changes, as indicate, include repairing and repainting parts of the existing cladding to the Jewson's corporate livery, the installation of new roller shutters, and in the infilling of some windows. As part of the external changes, the proposal is also seeking to remove the existing canopy on the rear elevation and replace it with a larger canopy to provide increased coverage to the rear of the building. It's also seeking new replacement entrance gates, not too dissimilar to the existing gates on the site. These external changes would have no material impact on the appearance of the surrounding area. As part of the proposed changes, the current proposal is also seeking to revise the external storage area to provide increased areas for the storage of goods up to 7 meters high, which is called storage racking, to enable greater flexibility for customers to access materials. The external storage racking of materials already forms a key part of the existing building business. The current proposal is seeking to regularize the layout and to add further storage areas within the site to enable customers easy access to the materials required for construction sites. Based on the proposed site layout plan, the nearest storage racking will be located more than 90 meters away from the street scene of Dalla Road, resulting in minimal impact on the appearance of the surrounding area. In terms of Hatters Way, owing to the existing builders merchants building being located behind a tree line means that the proposed racking would not represent a visually intrusive feature when viewed from Hatters Way. A condition is to be imposed limiting the height of these areas to a maximum of 7 meters to prevent any further increase in height and to limit any further future adverse effect on the visual amenity of the surrounding area. Based on the foregoing, the proposed development will not have a harmful effect on the character and appearance of the surrounding area. In terms of impact on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers, as set out in paragraph 25 to 29 of the report, there will be no material impact on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers due to the minor nature of the external changes and the spatial distance and relationship of the site with the neighbouring properties, which are mainly commercial uses. In terms of transport and parking implications, the current proposal is seeking no additional floor area, and therefore there is no requirement for additional parking to be provided. However, as part of the reconfiguration of the customer and staff car parking, the proposal would result in net loss of 43 parking spaces on the whole site, mainly customer parking. The site currently has a total of 137 parking spaces, 120 customer car parking spaces, and 17 staff car parking spaces. The revised layout shows a total of 94 car parking spaces, of which 54 would be customer car parking spaces and 40 staff. The revised layout also provides disabled parking bays, whereas there are currently no disabled car parking provision on the site. The loss of customer car parking has been justified by the applicant in the supporting documents, that given the nature of the operations of the existing builder's merchant yard, which is a bespoke business targeting a specific customer base, it can accommodate this loss without causing any harm to the parking situation in the area. It is also noted that the site is very well located in terms of access to sustainable modes of travel, which offer a viable and realistic opportunity to travel by non-car modes. The local highway authority have also raised no concerns in relation to the loss of parking or highway implications of the development. Other matters. In relation to other matters, as set out in paragraph 34 to 37, the proposal raises no major ecological flooding or PNG requirements. To conclude, based on the foregoing and the committee report, the proposal is not considered to have a harmful effect on the character or the appearance of the surrounding area, the amenities of adjoining occupiers, or raise any major highway implications. On that basis, a conditional approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Nyla. Is the applicant online? Tom Hopkins, can you hear me? Say yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you've got up to 5 minutes to speak in support of the application, and you'll get a reminder when you've had 4 minutes, okay? Members may wish to ask questions when you're finished, okay? So
Okay.
Ready when you are.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you, and thank you, members of the Planning Committee. My name is Tom Hopkins. I'm from Quad, the planning consultant representing Stark Building Supplies UK, the trading name of Jewson, who the trading name of Stark Building Supplies UK. The business has had a presence on Dallow Road for a significant period of time, and as a result have built a strong customer base supplying local businesses in this part of Luton. The site itself has long been occupied for industrial and commercial uses, with Travis Perkins and City Plumbing trading from the adjoining plots. Whilst Jewson trade well from their Luton branch, the business has identified this location as an exciting opportunity to improve their presence and offer on this allocated employment site. The existing branch, comprised of a single warehouse and yard area, has become constrained as Jewson have sought to grow sustainably. The existing warehouse and arrangement have become outdated, prompting Jewson to seek a revised operation to meet their requirements as a modern builder's merchant. Owing to their established customer base, Jewson have a strong desire to remain in Luton and therefore wish to invest in their future here. Part of their branch of the future strategy, Jewson is implementing a comprehensive investment programme to optimise its branch network across the nation. Jewson actively asked customers for their feedback, and the changes are now being made in direct response to that feedback, ensuring the company is providing the products and services that professional tradespeople in Luton require. It is important to highlight that the application site will continue to operate as a sui generis builder's merchant and that there are no proposed changes to the land use. The proposed development relates to cosmetic changes to the building and yard layout only. The existing warehouse unit will be retained and refurbished to reflect Jewson's corporate library, including introduction of an open-sided canopy on the western elevation. Additional minor works, including infilling of windows and introduction of a single roller shutter, are also proposed. To meet the requirements of Jewson's improved operation, the proposal also includes reconfiguration of the yard area. The existing access points are retained, with the existing entrance and egress on Dallow Road utilised in its current form to support a one-way system throughout the site. The existing entrance gates will also be replaced with a sliding gate arrangement. Parking provision, as you've just heard, have been reconfigured in accordance with adopted standards and at an acceptable level, given the bespoke builder's merchant use. This position has been accepted by officers and by the Highway Authority. Operational hours for the new branch will reflect those of the existing, including opening for just a few hours over the weekend period. External lighting throughout the site will be replaced at a level that will not be to the detriment of neighbouring occupiers, as confirmed by your Environmental Health Officer. Overall, it is considered that this application should be viewed as an opportunity to sustainably improve the site and deliver a modernised branch that is in line with new Jewson branches across the UK. Alongside the creation of jobs through the construction and fit out, the proposal will protect existing jobs and represent a significant commercial investment by the applicant. This should be looked upon favourably in the current economic climate. To sum up, the improvement of this existing local business is fully supported by local and national planning policy, and we respectfully request that the Planning Committee approves the planning application in line with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions by members to the applicant's representative? Brooke?
Can the application tell me what are they using for? What things are they going to use in there?
Sorry, I don't think I understand your question.
I said, what are you going to use for?
What are we using the site for?
Service in there, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an existing builder's merchant, and that use will continue. So it will be a continued use of that sui generis builder's merchant use. There's no changes to the land use or the operation of the site. The application relates simply to changes to the existing building and to the layout of the yard area and parking arrangements.
Okay, thank you.
Alia Khan?
Chair. My question is a slightly technical one, and it relates to the accessibility and adaptability of these properties. So it relates directly to document part M.
This is 2267.
Yes.
Yes.
So.
It's not,
Oh, it's not. Okay. Sorry, my bad. Please ignore my question.
That's okay.
Any further questions from members? Okay. Then the recommendation is to approve. Councillor Franks?
you haven't asked for questions to the officer, and I've got one, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my mistake.
Okay, paragraph 32, talking about the loss of customer car parking spaces, says the site is well located in terms of access to sustainable modes of travel. Surely not suggesting that customers are going to come to a building merchant to collect building materials on the bus, are we?
That's just to say, councillor, if anyone wants to go there to look at things, obviously they've got materials, not necessarily to buy. They've got alternative modes of transport to get there. But obviously, if they're buying buildings, then they're going to be taking vans or whatever car.
Are the highways people really quite happy with this?
I think what we did in this instance, the applicant we decided was in the best commercial position to determine what was right for his business. It's not in his interest to have insufficient parking on site, given, as you say, anyone purchasing equipment and materials is going to need to stop there and bring a vehicle with them. We did give it some consideration, but felt in this instance they were in the best interest, in the best place to determine the amount of parking they required for their business.
Okay, no highways implications.
Must remember not to catch a bus.
Well, funny you should say that, because when I go to B&Q, I don't have a car. I get off the bus. And I have a look. If I want to buy anything, I buy it and I get it delivered. Francis.
Yeah, just quickly, I would have thought the answer's the same sort of answer, but I presume the applicant has taken into consideration that most of the parking spaces are vans and lorries, not cars.
That's correct. If I may answer that one, as you've just heard, Jewson are best placed to determine the level of parking they required, because it's not the builders merchant use doesn't typically fall within a usual use class, hence it's sui generis use, which means without class. So as a business, they're best to determine how much parking and for what vehicles is best in terms of provision on a site-by-site basis. There is obviously car parking, but again, there's loading areas which are capable for pickups by larger vehicles such as vans, as you mentioned.
Okay, any further questions by members? Any comments? And no comments. The recommendation is to approve. I'll move approval, subject to the conditions.
I'll second, Chair.
Matt, we go to the vote?
Councillor Lowe can't vote because he's just done.
Yeah, we've voted it down. He knows that, yeah. Yeah, Councillor Agisola, welcome to the meeting tonight. Although you can take part in the next one, you can't vote in this one, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ambier? 4. Thank you. Councillor Farouk? Councillor Franks?
4.
Councillor Haniff?
4.
Councillor Khan?
4.
Councillor Steer?
4.
And Councillor Taylor?
4.
That's carried, Chair.
So that's carried. No planning permission has been granted. We'll now move on to our second item, and that's 30 to 31 Dunstable Road. Abby.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of a verbal update and clarification, the highways contribution is for a pedestrian cycle link to the Luton and Dunstable busway. The council will consider an extra stop on the busway, but this would be subject to agreement with bus companies. So the money is towards putting in a pedestrian link rather than the actual bus stop. Members will have seen a copy of the update sheet, which provides clarification that Natural England have no objections to the proposal and do not consider it will be to the detriment of the SAC, which is the Ashridge estate. And this is subject to the provision of green space on site and that parking levels remains at 43 spaces. The local lead flood authority has raised no objections, subject to a planning condition, and Affinity Water is satisfied with the proposal, subject to a number of conditions regarding contamination, and these are detailed within the update sheet. Active Travel England have not provided any further comments on the travel plan or cycle parking provision, following the Council Highways Engineer's comments that these matters can be dealt with by planning conditions. In light of this, no objections are raised in this regard. It is considered that the cycle parking detail and travel plan details can be dealt with via planning conditions. Amended plans have been submitted by the applicant, and that these removes balconies facing Hatters Way on levels 1 to 5, which could have potentially overlooked the Gurdwara main hall. A privacy screen is also proposed at levels 6 to 19. The Council's Environmental Protection Officer has requested further conditions regarding noise mitigation and contamination, and these are recommended to be added to the permission. And in addition to this, it is recommended that condition regarding postage is also added to permission if granted. The application site is located between the junctions of Dallow Road and Hatters Way with Dunstable Road. The site is vacant. Trent House, a former 3-storey office building on the western side of the site, has recently been demolished. The application site can be accessed via a pedestrian footbridge over the Telford Way roundabout. The site is adjacent to the Gurdwara to the west. To the south of the site is St Mary's Care Home, which is the former Union Workhouse and is Grade 2 listed. And the A505, a busy dual carriageway, lies to the east, where the site borders Dallard Road and Dunstable Road. The wider surrounding uses comprise a mixture of residential dwellings and commercial buildings. The site, excluding Trent House, is allocated for housing under the adopted local plan, which indicates a potential capacity of 124 dwellings. The proposed scheme comprises a 16 to 21-storey residential development, providing 291 homes. The development comprises 3 blocks, extending to a maximum of 21 floors. The development comprises 102 one-bed flats and 189 two-bed flats, and all dwellings meet the nationally described space standards. A car park is proposed across the basement level, and this will be accessed from a vehicular access and ramp located in the northwestern corner of the site along Dallow Road. The existing vehicular access point along Dallow Road in the centre of the site will be closed and the footway reinstated. The development will provide 43 parking spaces, and 6 of these will be accessible, and there are 150 cycle parking spaces proposed to serve the development. A landscaped area is proposed along the north and east boundaries of the development, and this will form public realm for both residents and members of the public. It will provide planting, seating, and incidental play features. The proposed scheme also includes communal private amenity space for residents across 2 rooftop gardens, as well as a podium-level residence garden, which includes play space for 0 to 5-year-olds. In addition to this, the majority of the units benefit from private amenity space in the form of a balcony. The applicant has submitted a viability assessment, which demonstrates that it is not viable to provide on-site affordable housing or developer contributions. The Council's independent assessor has accepted the findings of this report. Notwithstanding this, there is a contribution of £150,000 towards the provision of improved pedestrian and cycle access to the existing busway, as I mentioned previously. There have been a number of high-rise development proposals for flats approved in recent years on this site, including an application for 214 units. Excuse me. The principle of flats has been accepted by virtue of the planning applications, and furthermore, this site is allocated for housing in the local plan. This proposal has been through a long pre-application process with planning officers at the council. This included 2 design review panels with independent architects, landscape architects, and urban designers making assessments of the scheme, and a public consultation event held by the applicant. It is also important to recognise that 21-storey flats have recently been approved in Castle Street and Cumberland Street, and 23 stories have recently been approved by committee at Napier Gateway. In terms of assessment, currently the council does not have a 5-year housing land supply of deliverable housing sites. This means that the relevant local plan policies relating to housing land supply are considered out of date and cannot be relied upon. As such, in accordance with the NPPF, the tilted balance must be applied in making a decision on this application. The delivery of 291 flats in this instance is considered to carry significant weight in the decision-making process. While the development does not comprise in its entirety of family housing and there is no on-site provision of affordable dwellings, the fact that the site is allocated for housing and the contribution this will make to housing delivery is extremely significant. For a planning application to be refused when applying the tilted balance, the harm associated with a development proposal must significantly and demonstrably outweigh any planning benefits. When the tilted balance is applied, it is essential to conduct a planning balance to evaluate the application. The proposal will result in improvements to the public realm, the greening of the area and improved sustainable transport links. Further to this, the regeneration of a strategic vacant site, which acts as a gateway into Luton, will act as a catalyst for further regeneration, and this carries significant weight in the decision-making process. Incidents of crime which there has been over 90 in the local area will be reduced by this development due to natural surveillance, and this is considered to carry moderate weight in the planning balance. A further significant material planning benefit of this development is the biodiversity net gain associated with the development. Currently, there are 0 habitats on this cleared site. Section 66 of the Planning, Listed Building and Conservation Areas Act states that in considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting, the authority shall have special regard to the desirability of preserving the building or its setting or any features of special architectural or historic interest which it possesses. In relation to the matter of the impact on the heritage assets, which are in this case the listed building and conservation area, and are detailed within the historic environment section of the committee report, it is considered that the proposed development would deliver sufficient public benefit to outweigh the less than substantial harm to the said heritage asset. It is considered that this matter has been given due weight as required in the consideration of this application. This matter is considered neutral in the planning balance. In addition to this, the Council's highways engineer has raised no objections in regard to highway safety. The flats will also provide suitable accommodation for potential occupiers compliant with policy LLP 25 of the local plan. Notwithstanding the benefits above, however, the development will have an impact on the Gurdwara through increased overlooking and the impact of the massing and scale of the proposed development on the adjoining site. In this instance, however, given the application site is allocated for housing in the local plan, the contribution to housing delivery, improvements to the public realm and the sustainable transport offer, regeneration of a strategic site, improvements to biodiversity, increased natural surveillance resulting in reduced incidents of crime, and the public benefits are considered to outweigh the harm demonstrated in regard to the overlooking and potential overbearing impact on the neighbouring property. As such, it is recommended to the committee that the application is granted planning permission subject to the conditions and legal agreement outlined within the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Can I ask the spokesperson for the objectors, Prabhat Singh Sobti, to come forward, please? Use one of the microphones. Is it working? Press the button.
Button on this one.
It's on now. Okay. Press it again. That's it. You've got
Thank you, Chair.
You've got up to 5 minutes to speak regarding this application.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing us to make this representation. Chair, I believe you know that there has been a written representation from Guru Nanak Gurdwara, which is one 18-page document. The other one is 3-page letter. And our representations today are going to be in addition to what we have already said. And it's going to be as brief as possible. and if I may, through you, Chair, and if this development goes ahead, these 3 tall, huge towers next to this Sikh temple is going to change completely the amenity of area. When we moved into this new place and built up this, it's some 30 years back, it was never envisaged that something like this monster scale, which will dwarf our place, and it will look almost non-existent, just sitting next to it. It will completely change the character of the area. And it will shadow our building. Our right to worship will be affected, as people in these 2 tall, 3 towers, which are around 200 feet tall, they'll be overlooking our people coming into the Gurdwara and worshipping, and people will be reluctant to be monitored all the time, going inside the Gurdwara and coming out. Religion is a very private affair. People come there discreetly, they worship, and they go out. And if they are aware that they've been watched all the time, they will be reluctant to visit the Sikh temple. And these 200 tall 3 buildings will definitely affect our right to light. And we, over 30 years period, we have enjoyed the right to light, which will vanish. The pressure on the local traffic and these roads network will be unbearable. At the moment, if you see during peak hours, there are queues that one has to wait in their vehicle for 10 minutes to get into the Dunstable Road from Dell Road at both ends of the Dell Road. Think about 1,000 people, occupants of these 2 towers, adding how much they will add to the problem. It's not only going to add the traffic, but it's going to be dangerous for the occupants of these new towers, as well as the followers of the temple, due to the excessive road traffic. Further, Chair, that it will reduce the value of our assets. We never thought that something of this scale is going to come next to our temple, and it will substantially reduce the value of our assets. Then again, the next one is the various types of nuisance which will happen. Noise nuisance. And normally these towers will have surveillance cameras, CCTV cameras, which will be overlooking the Gurdwara. People will be reluctant to use this because when they see that we've been watched all the time, this will reduce our following. We, as you might be aware, that we provide free meal service to the needies in Luton. And how it happens is that doors are open for everybody. And it's our belief that, we will not be able to maintain the service at the level that we are providing now if 1,000 occupants, they come just next door, which we will not be able to police or monitor. Chair, the other problem is the parking problem. If you see in their suggestion that they are saying they are allowing 0.15% car parks for them. Realistically, if you see these Sikh temples, doors are always open. And we have parking spaces for only our followers. And we have no means to police if the next door residents, they keep bringing their cars and parking, and our own followers will not be able to use these car parks, which means that it will affect our religious freedoms. Chair, I know that in the application, they say that there has been a previous planning permission for 184 dwellings. And it's only a step further. First of all, I will submit that it's almost double that amount. The other thing is that this is a fresh application, and I believe that this committee has to concentrate as if there is no planning permission, and you are granting 291 dwellings now, which is going to add to the problems that we already have. But just the last bit, Chair. We had recently changed the management committee, and in order to no further confrontation between the objectors and the applicants, I would request that we should be allowed to make further submissions after taking some legal advice, because I had this just half an hour before and I was asked to say, and I've said whatever I could in this small amount of time. Unless the chair needs or anybody else needs any clarifications, Chair, these are my submissions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions by members? Yes, Professor Khan.
Yes, thank you for your contribution. I just had one question on whether you think that in any way this development could contribute or benefit your congregation by having more homes in the town. Do you think there's any benefit to that?
They consider the number of people. I have said on various issues that our gate is always open. There will be complete families, from young children to working families living. Anybody can come in. People creating noise, hanging their washing outside, in their underwear, watching over what we are practicing. This is, it's all sorts of problems can come. The parking problem I've already mentioned, that is only going to add the traffic congestion as it is. Sometimes people don't come because there's lots of parking, and the traffic situation, if you see, watch for yourself. I don't have privilege of producing the video today, but I'm sure through you, Chair, that all councillors would know what the situation of that is. Virtually, it looks like, you are putting these eyesores in the heart of the town, and all 1,000 residents, whether or not you believe that, is going to choke the arteries of the heart, that is the heart of the town, all these traffic. Thank you.
Get highways to come in later on as regard to traffic issues and the response. Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
I'll get. We've got a representative from Highways here. It's also in the report. I'll get him to comment later on during the debate. Okay.
Thank you.
Brooke, please.
Thank you, Chair. What is your main concern? Is overlooking your windows or what? What's your main concern?
Sorry, it might be hard of hearing, but I couldn't understand.
What are your main concern?
Sorry. It's collectively, the whole development is my main concern. It's collectively, there's no one single thing. It will ruin the value of our assets. If they are brought in, if you see the whole character of the area will change. There is no more than 2-story building in the vicinity. You are bringing in 22 stories and it will completely mar the site. It will ruin the value of our assets. It will not let us practice our religion. It will put off people coming to the Gurdwara.
Okay, any further questions to the representative of the Gurdwara? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. And I guess that the applicants will like to consider some of the comments that you made. They'll be responding next. Yeah, I was going to make it 8 minutes, yeah. Okay, Neil Rowley. To be fair, I'll give you the same time as the objector took. That's 8 minutes in total. Yeah, Jakob.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just request that if the officers are done with the PowerPoint, could that be minimised so that, because I know a number of people are watching you, so they can get a better view of who's speaking. You know what I mean? Can't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's the same amount of time will be afforded to you. That's about 8 minutes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name's Neil Rowley. I'm a planning consultant for Savills, and I'm here to represent Comer Homes. Now, this would be a fantastic building. It would be brought to you by an award-winning developer and an internationally renowned architect. The building represents an investment of over £65 million in state-of-the-art, energy-efficient and top-quality design buildings. We've been working on pre-application discussions with your officers for nearly 2 years, including public consultation and several meetings with your design review panel, all of which have shaped the scheme that you see before you today. Comer Homes has multiple investments across Luton. The chairman of Comer Homes is here tonight to see and understand your discussion and understand any concerns that you might have. He's told me tonight that this is one of the most important investments in our portfolio, and if permission is granted tonight, we'll be making arrangements in the morning for work to commence on site as soon as possible. We're sad to hear that our neighbours next door at the Gurdwara do not like the building. We've met with representatives from them once before the application was submitted and once after it was submitted. We've listened to their concerns and looked to see if we can reach any compromise. We've removed some of the balconies on the lower floors that might have overlooked them, and we've installed privacy screens in other places. But we think simply that they don't want a residential building to be built next door to them. And that's a shame, because our site is allocated in the Luton local plan. It's had planning permission for residential development since 2004, before the new temple was built. In 2017, when the Gurdwara sought planning permission for its new building, they were warned at this very committee in the committee report that permission had been granted for 214 dwellings next door. And that planning committee report says the Gurdwara proposal should not restrict the ability of the neighbouring land to deliver new homes. And that's in black and white, and we can all go and dig out that planning report and see that warning for ourselves. That comment was made in 2017, before the Gurdwara had even started building their new building. So our colleagues at the Gurdwara have always known that a significant residential development would be built on this important and allocated corner site. Of course, the Gurdwara will be able to see the development. It will become a new local landmark, but it will not be over-dominant or overbearing. Our assessments demonstrate there will be no noticeable reductions in daylight to the worship areas, with high levels of sunlight maintained in the proposed building. The car park for the Gurdwara will be overlooked, of course, but surely that's a good thing given what we've heard about antisocial behaviour on the site. But the building itself will not be overshadowed. Views of the new buildings will only be glimpsed through the site windows. Our opposite windows are at an oblique angle, and there'll be no intervisibility between the windows, so you won't be able to see in from one building into the other. And now we've removed those balconies as a spirit of compromise. That will reduce any possibility of overlooking entirely. All that said, Coma Homes is committed to building relationships with its neighbours and undertakes before all of you tonight to make every effort to be a good neighbour to the Gurdwara and all of Luton. With that promise in mind, Coma Homes Developments has the highest standard of property management. We manage our own developments and there will be a 24-hour concierge on site. So if there are any issues whatsoever, we'll have a security guard or concierge on site to deal with them. And those issues can be dealt with immediately. In summary, this is a £65 million investment in Luton by an award-winning design team and an internationally renowned architect. Coma Homes hopes you can grant planning permission tonight so that we can be on site building later this year. Coma Homes believes in all the hard work you and your colleagues in Luton are doing to undertaking to make Luton shine. We believe in Luton and are ready to invest, and I hope you can grant planning permission tonight.
Thank you very much. Questions? Where you go then, Alia? I was looking down. I didn't see who was.
That's why I said to. But it's just mark my name down.
Oh, but you know, no. So we'll start with Farouk.
Thank you, Chair. You heard what the people saying regarding overlooking. Has there been anywhere been addressed or been looked at very carefully?
We've looked at lots of things very carefully. Our starting point is always to look at our relationship with our neighbours. The difficulty is a lot of the issues that we heard from them are going to occur whether the building is 4 stories or 21 stories, because there will be a building next door to them that will be taller than them. You'll be able to see into their car park from our residential building. So it's not the fact that it's 21 stories, it's the fact that there's a building there at all. Now, we know that in Luton and everywhere, we have to make the best use of these brownfield previously developed sites. And that's what we're trying to do. You'll see, I'm sure your officers will show you again later, but the way the buildings are designed are so that they can't possibly overlook each other. The main walls are at an oblique angle, so you can't see in. We absolutely undertake to work with the Gurdwara if planning permission is granted to try to make sure that we can be good neighbours. We think we've done everything we can do. I think the problem is, any residential building is going to cause the issues that have been discussed tonight.
So you are giving them guarantee that there will be no overlooking through the windows from your new buildings?
We don't think they'll be overlooking the.
You don't think they will be overlooking inside the whole?
The windows will look. The windows look out over the road, over the main road, or across the car park for the Gurdwara.
So you're sure that there will be no overlooking there?
Not direct overlooking. No, you won't be able to look straight out and into the other building.
Okay, thank you.
You were there today on visits, weren't you, with us? And I was standing with you. We were looking out the windows. So I think we both saw the same thing, unless you saw something different. Yeah. Jakob.
Thank you, Chair. I've also got a few questions. First one is, if you're getting planning permission, how will you minimise disruption to the local area, considering the size of the project? Because I got told it's 30 months. It's a grand project. It's going to be the tallest building in the borough if it goes ahead. So how will you minimise disruption to the local area? Because it's a historic part of town. That's my first question, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Look, the first thing to say, we're an experienced developer. We know how to do this, and we know how to minimise construction. The other thing, we have other developments in Luton, and we're determined to make this a good start, because it's a place we want to invest in, and we know that comes with responsibility, and we know it comes with getting things right. I think the first thing we would do is we would set up a liaison committee. so that we could have meetings with neighbours, and that would include our colleagues we've heard from tonight, and for example, the St Mary's Care Home over the road and other local residents. So we'd have that liaison committee, and I think probably the gentleman I'm with here tonight, who's heard of those, would probably lead on it. And that would start with information going out to people, so they'd know, for example, when big equipment's turning up or when we're going to be working. We'd agree to hours of working so that we don't disturb people. We would have regular meetings with residents so that concerns can be aired. There would be a helpline that people can ring if they're worried by something that's happening. And that would be an ongoing relationship, maybe weekly or monthly meetings, whatever's deemed necessary. So those are the sort of things we'd put into place. And also, I think if one of the ward councillors wanted to be on that or involved in that, we would work with you as well, just to try and make sure that everything goes well. But we're determined to make, if we get permission tonight, which we really hope we will, we're determined to make this work.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And the two ward councillors are in this meeting, so I think they should be involved. And the reason I ask this question, because I live right opposite Barnfield College, which is a massive development, and for a number of months my car was covered in some sort of sandy texture from the site. Second question is, we can't really do anything about the makeup, because I'm disappointed with the number of one beds in there. I think there should have been less, but we can't deal with that. 43 parking spaces. So what will you do to ensure residents are not under the impression that they're going to live there and have access to parking? So what are you going to do to be a responsible landlord to make sure the residents don't have expectation that they're going to have somewhere to park? I've got one more question after this, Chair. Go on. Thank you.
Again, I mean, we are used to having car-free development. It's something we work with elsewhere. What we tend to do is when residents arrive, they were given a welcome pack, which explains to them the situation, the car parking situation. Probably more importantly than that, when we open our marketing suite and we invite people in to consider whether or not they want to buy one of our properties, we make very clear the situation with parking. We make very clear that there won't be parking spaces for almost all of the residents, and we also set out very clearly what is available in Luton and what can be reached very quickly. So, for example, hopefully the contribution we're making will make the busway much more accessible. I mean, Luton's fantastic in terms of from that site you can be in the town centre within minutes. You can be at the railway station within probably 10 minutes, and there's all sorts of buses. So it's two things. To answer your question quickly, it's two things. First of all, when we market the properties, we make the situation very clear. Secondly, when people arrive, they'll get a pack explaining to them exactly what what transport opportunities are available to them. We also will have an on-site concierge. There'll be someone there all the time, and they will make sure that sort of information is readily available to people coming and going from the site.
Thank you. And the reason, again, I ask that question is there's experience from across the borough, because my parents live next to Holy Ghost, and they have no ends of problem where they have a car park for their parishioners, but they don't have, they have issues there. The final question is, there's a number of listed buildings nearby. Paragraph 76, page 78. I mean, what is meant that beams have placed that less than substantial harm at low level? So what does that mean, and what have you done to mitigate the damage or the threat to listed buildings in the vicinity of this development? Thank you, Chair.
We've obviously, from the very start, we understood that there was a listed building on the other side of the road, and we worked with the council planning officer and also the design review panel to address that in the best way that we could. The level of harm that beams have suggested, I think, is the lowest level of harm you can possibly have in a planning context. And to be frank, building any form of building on that site is likely to have that very low level of harm, simply because it will be built opposite a listed building. What we have done, we have the most important relationship between the listed building and our site is at the lower floors. That's the relationship you'll see when you're looking at listed building and looking over the other side of the road. So we've undertaken very careful architectural treatment of that part of the building. We've got an inset where the main entrance is. We've chosen materials for that part of the building that are complementary to the listed building, and the general form of the building relates well to the listed building at street level. So that's why the work we did with your officers and the design review panel led to that very low level of harm.
Babatunde. And then I'll come to you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you for presentation. I have 2 questions. The first one, I'll say, do you have similar developments around UK or anywhere that you've done similar things?
Yes, we've got developments in near to Bushy in Hertfordshire. We've got developments in Enfield. We've got other developments down on the south coast. We've got a brand new building in Bracknell where we've got probably the closest example. It's a town centre scheme with very little parking. We've done some of the things that I mentioned in conversation with your colleague earlier in terms of the travel plan and letting people know what the transport opportunities are close to the town. We've just got planning permission for a similar building in Southend, which we'll hopefully be starting soon. So we've got lots of other examples. We know how to make this work.
Okay, thank you. Because from your answers to my colleagues, I found out you've spoken very smoothly. The liaison committee, the regular meetings with residents. So it sounds so smooth to me. So if things doesn't go according to your plan, what do you think you will do better? Because the hours of work, the noise, from experience now. Yeah. If you're given the approval tonight, like in the past experience, we've started seeing where hours of work start changing, the noise levels. But when things doesn't go as according to plan, what are your plans?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. You can't build buildings like this and nothing ever goes wrong. You're absolutely right to identify that. I think what we found through our experience is all you can do is communicate and make sure lines of communication are open. So, for example, to make sure if someone rings our helpline, because let's say, for example, someone's worked a bit too late into the evening, you need to make sure that phone is answered, it doesn't just ring out. And then actually, if someone does ring up and say, look, there's someone still working, it's 7:30, then we'll be straight onto it. We'll do something about it, and it'll be visibly proven that someone has raised an issue and we've dealt with it. So probably the 2 key words are communication, that you're available to be spoken to, and then trust, in that if you're spoken to about something, you will actually deal with it. And that's one of the advantages of Comer Homes is it is a family house builder. It's quite a small sort of management making team in itself. The decisions are made very quickly and very easily, and we do have staff that are committed to projects. So there'll be a named person that will be the representative for this site. So by being I often say Comer Homes is probably the biggest house builder that people don't regularly hear of every day, and we're trying to change that. But by virtue of being a family team, we can make decisions quickly, and we can make sure someone answers the telephone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your contributions tonight. So I have a number of questions. So do you want to take them all in bulk, or should we do it question and then answer, question and answer? How would you prefer?
If it's okay with the chairman, I'd rather do them one by one if that's okay. But
yeah, no, that's fine. So one of the first question is actually relates to the Section 106 provisions. I know it's been highlighted, but I think my concern is around why there isn't any affordable homes provision, because we do have a marked need for this in the town. I think that's also recognised within the local plan as well. And also Dallow is one of the most deprived wards in the town, and that's what my main concern is as the ward councillor. So what will you be doing to improve the local area? Is there any provisions you'll be making in that regard?
Okay, just to come back on the first part of your question, I mean, we're not proud of the fact that we can't deliver any affordable homes here. We do deliver affordable homes on other developments. Just the dynamics of this one don't make it possible at the moment. There is a Section 106 clause that will reassess the viability of the site, and if, for example, values have improved and costs have gone down, then we might be able to contribute to affordable housing at a later stage. So we're not ruling out entirely, although you've obviously made the point, and that's fair. It's a shame, but it just can't work for this site. In terms of local improvements, obviously we believe it's a very high quality building, and it will much elevate the quality of the surroundings. We've got significant investment in public realm around the site. So there'll be a landscaping scheme which will surround the site and help integrate it into the surroundings. And it's quite a harsh environment up against the main road at the moment, because of over time how that's developed. And that's something we really want to look to create a fantastic sort of entrance to that part of the town. So it's a real sort of gateway into that part of Luton. We also, because we have our on-site people, we'll make sure that landscape is looked after, and if there's any litter in it, we'll get it cleared up and make sure it always looks good, because it's our front door for our development, so it's important to us as well. We're also proposing, I think there's a financial contribution to the busway, in the hope that there'll be a new station there, a new stop on the busway, which will open up that part of town for the busway as well.
Thank you. Following that question, actually, with thousands of new residents coming into the area, our local GPs and schools are already quite overstretched. We have a huge, I'm also a governor at the school, we have a huge waiting list for children that live in Dallow that aren't able to make it to the local primary schools. And then the GP services also quite overstretched. Will you be making any contributions for expansions there?
I don't think that's one of the things we've been asked to do, but we
is that something you would consider?
I think it's something, if we were asked to, we would consider in due course.
Because I think that would be, especially if families are moving in, then that is something that would need to be considered. The next question, so that's fine, thank you for answering that. The next question relates to actually a lot of these new developments in the town. What's happening is that a lot of people from out of town are coming, which partly due to the high prices, but actually what will you do to ensure, how will you market this to ensure that actually most of the occupants will be from Luton, and that they do have the opportunity, that they'll be prioritised in the sales of that?
Yeah, we do get this question a lot, and the truth of it is you can't, you can only go so far with it. But some of the things we do, for example, I see no reason why we wouldn't do it here, is you can go through a pre-marketing period that you invite local people to, and only local people. So you would advertise it only locally, maybe through the council, with the ward councillors, so that in that first instance, the properties are marketed. The marketing is aimed at local people, for them to come in and sort of have that first approach on the marketing. That's something we've done elsewhere and has been successful.
Thank you. I only have a couple more questions, so you'll be free from me in a moment. But the next question, because I work in the accessible housing industry, naturally relates to document part M, which is quite technical. But will you be building these properties to the M42 standard regulations, which is accessible and adaptable? I can explain what that means if
No. The questions are getting progressively harder, so just give me a second.
So how many of these will be M42 regulations, and would you consider making all of the ground floor properties to the M43 wheelchair accessible standards?
Okay.
Because there is a need for that, and M42 inevitably future-proofs homes.
Yeah, just give me a second to yeah, no, sorry. So we've got 92% of the buildings, 92% of the homes will be M42, and then 8%, which is 23 units, will be M43. I think that's most of the ground floor. I don't know if it's all of the, it must be all of the lower floors.
Okay, thank you. And if the properties are M42, will there be a lift installed as well?
There'll be a lift, yes.
Okay. And how wide will that lift be? Will it be wheelchair accessible?
Yes.
Okay. The next question, final question, relates to fire safety. Now, I know that the standard regulation now is moving to building 2 stairways, but actually a development of this scale probably needs more than 2. So how many stairways will you be incorporating within this development?
Just going to look behind me. There are two. We've worked,
Two.
we've worked very closely with a fire officer. That's how many calls are there? So 2 per building. So that's 6. Yeah. So that's 2 per core. So it's 2 for each of the buildings.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. That's fine. Thank you.
And we have worked with the fire officer and we've passed the sort of Gateway 1 test, which is all you can do at this stage.
Okay, and actually, document part B, which relates to fire safety, the government ministers, and there's a whole inquiry in that going on at the moment. What will you do to ensure that whatever comes out of that, you'll adhere to those regulations?
Well, we'll have no choice because we haven't started yet. We won't be able. We'll have to build to whatever regulations are in place when we start building. Otherwise, we won't be able to build it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Ambier next.
Thank you, Chair. On page, on point 15, you have you mentioned about number of flats to be built. So it will be 201 1-bedroom and 189 2-bed flats, right? Correct. There is no 3-bed flats mentioned. The thing is, in Luton, your proposal is not meeting Luton housing needs at all. Is there anything like, have you considered, like, I mean, these things and revisit and can provide any sort of 3-bed house? Because we have a big shortage of 3-bed family house. Even so, you don't even mention even single flat for 3 beds. What's is there any chance you can revisit and get some proportion of 3-bed family home, because it's very important, especially from Luton perspective.
Yeah, no, I understand, and this is something we've talked about with your officers and the design review panel. Unfortunately, we don't believe that 3-bedroom flats are the right thing to do in this building, because it's just that little bit on the outside of the ring road in that part of town. We think anyone that wants a 3-bedroom unit there will be looking at the houses on the Dallow Road, or at a house with a garden along that part of the town. So we have looked at it. We have thought about it. What we are doing is providing very spacious 2-bedroom flats, so that they're bigger than and have more storage space, which is what we try to do. But we don't feel we can provide 3-bedroom flats simply because in that part of town there's a lot of 3-bedroom houses, and we think that's what people would rather buy.
Actually, I'm not fully convinced, because 2 beds is 2 beds. It doesn't matter how big you are making, and I'm sure you're not going to make huge, like 12 feet by 12 feet rooms. So like which is, we are talking about Luton perspective. So that is the reason as a local council, I'm very concerned about local housing needs. And another one more question: if we go ahead, is there any discount you'll provide for the Luton residents for LU postcode residents? If anybody wanted to buy, any discount for local people?
Well, I think what we would try to do is by marketing it to local people first. Traditionally, the way these things work are, the properties, the first properties that sell tend to sell for less money, because you're buying a long time in advance of actually coming forward. So that sort of the way it develops is that the properties probably increase as people get more certain that people start to believe in the building and see it happening. So I think by virtue of the local residents being offered a sort of pre-marketing phase, as Councillor Khan's question, that they probably will get the sort of a sort of lower price because they're some of the first in. I can't, there's not going to be a sort of formal discount scheme, but I think that those are the advantages of being the sort of the pre-marketing period that I talked of before.
Okay, Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You'll be aware that the Gurdwara are concerned that their car park might be clogged up by residents of your development, making it difficult for their worshippers to attend and park. I just wondered whether your liaison committee would be willing, for example, to discuss with the Gurdwara what assistance you could offer them in the management of their car park.
Yeah, it's certainly something we'd be prepared to discuss with them, you know, we'll have people on site the whole time. So, you know, it's hoped if you do give us planning permission tonight, we would really hope to build bridges with the Gurdwara and be able to work together as neighbours, and you know, in that way that neighbours assist each other. That's something we would look to do.
Any further questions to the applicant? Stephen, yeah, you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to introduce myself, I'm Stephen Sparshott, I'm the planning solicitor. Just to mop up a couple of points that were made in terms of the Section 106 contributions. So there is only the transport contributions being provided. There is reference to the other contributions not being no ability to pay, but there will be the viability review assessment, and any money that comes out of that could go to affordable housing and or education. So that's how that would be utilised, if any. The other point I just want to mention.
No, if I come in, Clive was acting head of planning. The issue with health is we haven't got a policy basis at this stage for asking for healthcare contributions. Now, it's something that we look at through the new local plan, which we're underway with our consultation. And it's hoped that we can widen our Section 106 asks. But just at this time, I'd be reluctant about asking for a contribution without a policy basis.
Thank you, Chairman. And a reference to Section 66 Listed Building Conservation Areas Act 1990, just to emphasise, if you like, the Act and the section contains the duty to pay, as the planning officer said, special regard to the desirability of preserving or enhancing its character and appearance. So reference was made to less than substantial harm, and reference, I believe, is in paragraph 70 of the Beams advice that it's at low level and less than substantial. Question you brought up, that may well indeed be their assessment, but just to make sure you're aware that from the Section 66 position, you've just got to give that special regard. So give it, you know, more weight, if you like, in the apple cart of weighing things up. It is harm, and because it's harm, the Section 66 duty is engaged, and you've just got to give that special regard in the way you weigh everything up. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, and it was also, excuse me, another drink. Yeah. Just want to comment. It was mentioned about 3-bed flats, and I've spoken to developers in the past, and to be quite honest, they hate them. They don't sell at all. If you can afford a 3-bed flat, if I could afford a 3-bed flat, I wouldn't bother. I'd buy a 3-bed house. And I think that's the situation you're in. And you got a developer is building flats that'll sell. Quite simple. Any further questions to the applicant, and we can let them go? Okay, thank you very much. Questions to the planning officer, David, and then I want to bring Chris in as well from Highways later on.
Okay, just a couple of questions really. The first one is just to get my brain in gear. Is the former Trend House plot included in this planning application?
Yes, it is, but it's obviously not included in the allocation in the local plan. So the allocation of the local plan doesn't include Trend House, but yes, this application includes that, which has now been demolished.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm looking at conditions 4, 6 and 8, all of which refer to landscaping of one sort or another. I think the first thing I need to understand is is any of this at all likely to end up as public open space for which the council is responsible?
My understanding is it won't be public open space. It's merely improvements to the public realm
Okay, so
surrounding the building.
Yeah, so you're specifically saying public will have access to some of it, but it's not technically public open space.
No,
on that. Thank
correct.
you. The other point about these conditions 4, 6 and 8 is only 4 makes reference to future management and maintenance. I'm assuming, for example, the boundary treatment will probably involve some sort of planting, and yet that condition doesn't talk about future maintenance. And neither does the was in condition 8. It says the provision will be retained, but there's no mention of future maintenance or specifically a plan for future maintenance.
Yeah. If the application is to be approved today, then those conditions can be amended to ensure that future maintenance is covered and is referenced within the conditions.
Thank you. Only one more. Can't remember the number of it now. The refuse condition. No, sorry, I can't find it. But you know it's in there. It also doesn't make any reference to management of the refuse arrangements, i.e. making bins available for collection or all that sort of stuff. There needs to be a clear responsibility for managing the handling of refuse.
Yeah, thank you. That's noted, and obviously it will be amended in accordance with that if the application is to be approved today.
Questions, Francis, to the planning officer?
Yeah, thank you to the officers. So the objectors mentioned 2 things. One is the right to light. I wonder if you can explain whether that is a planning issue. And the other one was the value of their asset, even though obviously when they developed the site, they did know that the adjacent site was proposed for housing. But is that also a planning issue or not?
Yeah, but in terms of right to light, that does fall under different legislation and is a civil matter. We've obviously made an assessment in terms of overshadowing, and an assessment has been put in by the applicant. We're satisfied that this development won't result in an unacceptable level of loss of light to the adjacent site, the Gurdwara, and that has been demonstrated through the submission. So we're satisfied in terms of planning legislation that is covered. Right to light is not for consideration today. That is a matter of a civil matter, not related to this application. But in terms of LLP 25 and overshadowing, we are happy that's been assessed. And sorry, you'll have to remind me of the second question.
Sorry, the second question was the objectors mentioned the value of an asset. Now, is that a planning issue?
No, it's not a material planning consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Ambler.
Thank you, Chair. Recommendation point 2.3, last 2 points, especially that a mechanism to secure delivery of local goods and service and labor. Like, I'm not clear. If you can clarify more about last 2 point, 2.3 section recommendation on page 60. 2.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You have to clarify the question to me.
Yeah. 2.3.
2.3 and what?
Last two points.
And what's the question?
Is for the additionally, if the planning permission is granted, this is subject to satisfactory completion a legal agreement. So you mentioned about a legal monitoring fee 10,000.
Yep.
And some other another point before, a mechanism of secure delivery goods, services and labor.
In terms of what are the heads of terms of the Section 106 agreement? So
Not
It's
clear.
proposed there to be a viability review clause, because obviously the developer has put forward that at this stage, it's not viable for them to provide any developer contributions. So as part of the Section 106 agreement, at a latter point, following a certain point within the development, they will need to put in another assessment, which will then go back to the independent assessor, who will then make a decision as to whether there is any available monies to go forward towards, in this case, affordable housing or education. They are proposing to put forward £150,000 sustainable transport contribution, and that, as we said, will go towards improvements to access to the busway and a potential bus stop. There's also a requirement that they must advise residents, in effect, potential residents of this development, that parking permits will not be available. So parking permits will not be available for local residents who live in this development if approved, and that is a clause of the legal agreement. And there'll also be a mechanism to secure the delivery of local goods, services and labour, which is ensuring that they do come forward and use local people within Luton to work on the project, etc. And we would get a plan forward as part of the Section 106 agreement for that. The legal monitoring fee obviously is the fee that we have to monitor the legal agreement if the application were to be approved.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Can I ask Chris to come in now from Highways, because issues were raised by the objectors about traffic in Dalla Road and Ashburnham Road, etc. And how would this contribute to the increase in traffic that's anticipated?
I think the best thing to do is to explain how I go about assessing these applications when they come in, and we can address the points we come along. Obviously, where this site is, it's surrounded by 2A roads, and we have an important distributor road in Dalla Road immediately adjacent.
I'm so sorry. Could you speak a bit louder? I'm
Sure.
recovering from ear infection.
Closer to the microphone. When we assess these sites, we obviously look at the geographical location, and in this case, you've got 2A roads and an important distributor road surrounding the site. We have a look at parking provision. In this case, there's 43 spaces to be provided. So that in itself will generate a minimal amount of traffic, an increase on what's already there. We accept that this is an area that sees a high level of traffic, vehicular traffic. What that leads us to do, of course, is follow our policy, and that's try and make the move towards more sustainable transport uses. And that's why we've sought the contribution of £150,000 towards getting the link to the footway and cycleway that runs adjacent to the busway. And we will work with bus operators to look to incorporate a new stop in that location as well. That's what that funding is in place to do. It's nice and close to the town centre. We have the railway station, as I've said before, within about a 10-minute walk. Marketing materials for the development will discourage car use. The absence of car parking permits being available to residents, again, will further discourage it. We can't absolutely guarantee that people won't turn up and want to park their car there, but we would do our best to put the controls in place that makes it clear this is a car-free development. There's probably nothing more to say unless you've got any particular questions.
No, I just think it was to do with the increase in traffic. I mean, it's bad enough as it is now in Dalla Road and Cardiff Road, Ashburnham Road. And it was just that, would this make the situation worse? And your reply is it wouldn't make that much difference.
That's correct. In the provision of 43 parking spaces suggests that there will not be that much more traffic from owners' vehicles. There's a service bay to be provided as part of the development, which will obviously help address the needs of refuse collections and parcel deliveries and such things.
Yeah, because this is a very sustainable location. And I think it was mentioned by the applicant that it was 10 minutes to the railway station. I think it's a lot less than that. It's about 4 minutes to the railway station, maybe about 10 to 12 minutes to the airport. And it also goes the other way, Dunstable, Houghton Regis and Leighton Buzzard as well. So it is a sustainable location. Alia.
I think whilst there is a cap in parking provision, there's nothing to say that the residents won't be parking on the side streets. There's already a huge problem of illegal parking on double yellow lines and dangerous and obstructive parking in Dallow in particular. We just had a Let's Talk event. That was one of the biggest issues that came out. So what will you be doing? What will be done to mitigate that?
Well, there's already significant parking restrictions in place in the area, so it's a matter for the enforcement team. We can't do any more as highway officers. The limitations are already in place to control that. It's a matter for enforcement, I'm afraid.
I think it's a matter for elected members to determine whether you should limit the permits to one per household, and that would reduce the need for road space. But it's often been suggested but never been adopted. I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, just on our site visit today, the cul-de-sac opposite, there was a car parked with about 3 parking tickets on a double yellow. So I think might have to already think about bollards to alleviate some of the issues, some of pre-planning, because in as much as we can, we need to be, I think, proactive to deal with these issues before they happen. Because, I mean, on Westbourne Road, where my parents live, emergency services can't exit the road because bollards have not put people off. So there are bottlenecks around the town where emergency services can't get in and out. And I think getting in and out of that site and the temple, you've got people parking on corners, and I think you're going to have to do some sort of survey about bollards definitely along there to put people off from curb parking. Because what will happen is, because some residents may have a car, they may bring it home or close and park it up on the curb dangerously and creating bottlenecks where emergency services won't be able to access that area.
I think that particular car I noticed had an abandoned vehicle notice on it as well. I had a walk around the back later on. Bollards are considered as a last resort by us because they become a maintenance liability in themselves, and they also create an obstruction themselves as well. It's something to consider, something we can have a look at certainly, but they're not necessarily the answer to everything, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think we're drifting away from planning now, and we're getting into the council's parking policy. So I think can we return to the agenda item, please? I did want to bring Chris in just to explain it as regards to traffic congestion, but that was an open door to everybody else. Okay, Farouk, yours is not to do with parking, is it? Parking?
Yeah, I'm sure. What I'm saying is we don't have a control over it now. Otherwise, we're gonna have a serious problem. Because that corner, as in my colleague already mentioned, and people are going to park a car on the corners. Then we weren't able to go through, and we have a very heavy traffic coming on in the area. I think you need to go back and look into it properly.
That's another parking issue you're raising. Right, end of, right? Stop, no more parking issue, no more parking, right? Because we're not going to solve any parking issues here tonight. Okay, any further questions by members that don't include parking? Babatunde.
I just want to clarify, my colleague asked earlier about section 106 and then the 150,000 for the transportation. So aside the 150,000 in support for the transportation for the bus stop, is there going to be section 106 contribution as well?
No, there's no further contributions other than the 150,000 for sustainable transport. And, as committee seen before, that's based upon the viability assessment that we've sent to the independent assessor. So we put the we've recommended the review mechanism to see, what happens at a latter stage within the development. But the information before us and, the assessment made by the independent assessor concluded that it wasn't viable for any further contributions or affordable housing. So there is only the £150,000 contribution to sustainable transport measures.
Okay, so the independent assessment is for just 150,000 contribution and no section 106, and that's been accepted by your committee.
It's been accepted. the recommendation by the independent assessor has been accepted by planning officers, and the recommendation to committee is that there aren't any. It's not viable to provide contributions at this point in time for this application. So, as we've recommended quite often, we've recommended that the review clause is put into a Section 106 agreement. But there are detailed in 2.3, as I said before, a number of other contributions, well, not contributions, apologies, other clauses that are also recommended to be within a Section 106.
Councillor Ambian.
Thank you, Chair. Just have a follow-up question from my previous colleague about Section 106. We are talking about nearly 300 floods, yeah, and in return 150,000. Section 106. I have questions about the assessor who evaluate the amount. Is there anything we can review another third party to see we can get more? Because I'm not fully convinced about the assessor report about nearly 300 floods and getting in heart of the Luton and getting only 150 amount. So I would like to request you and Chair, is there anything, have a third party review and see can we get more on Section 106? Thank you.
I think just to be clear, it's not an assessor within the council that assesses this information. They're independent. So we use a company called BNP Paribas, and they assess it for us. So they're independent. They've got no sort of involvement other than we instruct them to look at it for us. So I think we have to rely on their assessment as they're impartial, professional, and they give us their professional view on it.
I mean, there is no harm to ask another second opinion because it's heart of the town, and we try our best to get take out most of amount what we can. Where council is desperate about all this development, community needs, and everything. So this is just time we need to make a decision and try to get most of it. Thank you.
Yeah, we hear what you say, and the times are difficult. I mean, had it been say 10, 12 years ago, we probably would have got everything that we asked for. If you look at the Vauxhall site on the Taylor Woodrow housing development, I think we got almost 30% of social affordable. On phase 2, I think was the flat development there was the Strawberry Star. We got 20%, I think, didn't we? In contribution. In the subsequent applications, we didn't get anything at all. If I'm right, am I?
In Napier Park, yeah, not Napier Gateway. But I think the important point to note is there is a second bite of the cherry through the later stage viability review. So the original viability review that we see now is based on assumptions. When the later stage viability review is submitted, it's based on actual facts and figures, build costs, etc. And at that point, we get a chance to assess it again to see if there is any more contributions that are viable. So it's not all that's lost, and we certainly take the point as officers. Unfortunately, viability is a matter that we have to take into account, and we're bound to do that by central government legislation.
Okay, are there any further questions to the planning officer? I'll move on. Any comments? Comments? Well, I'll have a comment, I think. This is a difficult one. I mean, the benefit of the site visit today, I think, was really important, because I was concerned about the scale and the height of the development, a lot of light and visual intrusion. It will have an impact on the Gurdwara, no doubt about it. It will have an impact. But I believe the Gurdwara will still continue to operate as a Gurdwara and doing the good work that they all always do. It's just the extent of which the impact will have on the Gurdwara. And as I said again, that there will be an impact. And it's up to members to decide the extent of that impact. And with no further comments, then we'll move to the resolution. And the resolution is to grant. And I'll move grant the recommendation. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
I will move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ajisola. For. Councillor Ambia.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk. Sorry, can you use the microphone for people at home? Thank you. Councillor Franks.
For.
Councillor Haniff.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Against.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
That's 5-4, 3 against, yeah.
What against?
5-4 and 3 against.
5, 4, 3 against.
Yeah.
Therefore, that's carried and planning permission has been granted, subject to the conditions. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on now to the scale of charges, which more excitement from Clive. Let's give a look to. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, people should be. Without, if I went down there without the visit, I would have probably voted against this. Go now and have a look. Yeah, I think it was good to see them prayer out with prayer rooms and windows, and you can see the corner. Got a still. Oh, because we're not getting what we want.
I think they're all left, Chair.
Oh, yeah, you're sorry, I just got into a debate with my vice chair.
Okay, thanks, Chair. This is item 7, development management scale of charges. The report is brought before members for them to approve a revised scale of charges for the financial year 25-26. And if agreed, the revised charges would take effect from the 1st of April this year. The item is as per the short report, and there are no updates. The report has been produced using the council's approved fees and charges framework. It is noted that income from charges remains vital to setting a balanced budget and maintaining the future provision of services. So the revised fees for planning charges are set out in Appendix A, and these are discretionary charges. Appendix B sets out the proposed charges for pre-application advice. And again, the use of pre-application of the advice service is optional, does not guarantee an approved scheme, but on the whole achieves better design, more sustainable development in the town. And the charges need to be revised to support the continued use of the service. And forecast income from these charges is expected to be in the region of 120,000 in the next financial year. So members are simply asked to approve the proposed charges as set out in appendices A and B. Thank you, Chair.
A question, Jakob?
Yeah, having had a look at these numbers, they're averaging 20 to 30% increase. So why?
We need to recover our costs in giving the advice. Also, we didn't actually increase these charges last year, so we are just catching up a year. They wouldn't have been quite as high had we raised them last year as well, but it's just sort of catching up really.
Well, should we tell her that we don't want to have these increases? Tell the Development Management Committee are against. They still implement it anyway, Budget Council.
Surely we shouldn't be catching up. We should make sure the annual increase reflects what it should be.
Yes, it will be a report that we bring before members every year to make sure we do capture the increase. I think last year was just an anomaly, but we need to do that. We need to take on board the inflationary rises. So yeah, spot on.
Any further questions? Any comments? You agree reluctantly to the scale of charges? Oh, agreed. Agreed.
Yep.
Thank you. Then I'll see you next month if there's anything on the agenda. Yeah, got a couple of things. There will be something on the agenda next time, yeah.